Welcome back to the Major Mitch YouTube channel. I took a little break, but we're back, and now it's time to jump back into the 63 behind me. We need to finish installing this firewall that I started on about 3 months ago. I'm going to show you how to fit and install this firewall, as well as using a new type of glue that I haven't used yet from Dynamic Corvettes. So be sure to stick around. I'm rebuilding this 63 split window that's completely torn apart right now. But what I want to do while some of this other stuff is drying, start working on the smooth firewall kit. So this car is going to become a resto mod. And I have this smooth firewall kit here from Dynamic Corvettes. I already kind of traced it out. They leave a lot of extra material on here when they pull it out of their mold. So if we lay this on the car, which it's a little easier to do when it's on its back, but it kind of fits in here like that. And you can see all of this extra flashing is pushing it down, which is running it over top of our body mount. So I just went around this radius, traced all this out. We need to cut all that off. I also removed any studs or hooks or any external provisions on the firewall, so that way this can lay as flat as possible. So we need to remove all of these. We also need to scuff the back side of this. They kind of did a little bit, but we're going to go through and rough this up so we can glue this onto this firewall. That also means that we need to prep this firewall with 36 grit. I know I did one of these types of firewall installs before, but this time we're going to use a different adhesive. I'll get it out in a little bit, but Dynamic Corvette sent me a can of their adhesive they wanted me to try out. So we're going to do it on this firewall because we're going to want a nice thick coat on here to make sure that this adheres properly. So we need to remove any of these raised areas, blend everything together. It's going to be a lot of sanding, but then we should be able to actually get this thing to fit properly, and then we can work on gluing it in place, and I'll show you how that glue works. So I scuffed the firewall on the car just to remove all the paint and to give us a good bite while it's easy to access, and I trimmed off all the extra flashing, and now we can actually get this thing sitting in place. It still needs trimming around here, but you can see this is about how it's supposed to fit in through here. I have to do some more sanding on the toe boards here, and again, all this will be blended together, but this is the idea here that we're going for. We want this to smoothly transition into this. Now that the body's back on the chassis, I can use the front of the chassis to push off of to keep the firewall in place. And I'm not putting a lot of pressure on this panel. It's just a very big panel and gravity's working against us. It kind of wants to fall off, but it's fitting pretty well. And you can kind of tap it in areas to here where it's not touching, like it could use just a little bit of pressure right here. And you want it to be fairly solid the whole way around. That way you know it's got a good mating surface. It's biting there pretty good. So now that it's fitting well, we can pull the firewall off. I want to scuff the whole back side to prep it for gluing. And then we also need to trace on the back side, because this is like a filler panel. This isn't just installing a regular panel. You can see all this area right here. We need to mark that with a pen. Same with all the holes in the firewall on that side. We don't need to put any glue in this area. That's just a waste. Because this is a large panel, we don't want to waste glue. So we're going to mark all this off. There's a big hole right here from where the blower motor is. We don't need to put glue there as well. And then the whole area around here, the wiper motor area, there's nothing back there. We're going to glue a bonding strip onto the firewall, so that way we can bite on the top surface here. So that way this doesn't push in here. We have a nice solid foundation there. So it's been a couple months since I've been working in the garage, and I was working on this firewall, which for you, this is just live, real time, no difference for you, but I have to remember where I left off. And I think I talked with the owner, and on the last firewall we did, I cut out the hole in the smooth firewall kit for the wiper motor, which there's a relief here, and they come with a little door that you put on that. Well, he said this one, he wants to leave it closed, which for the Detroit speed, motor, you can cut a hole in here on your Firewall, and you can install it from the inside. That wiper motor is a lot smaller than the original one, so you can have a nice clean look. And how often do you need to service your wiper motor? So you really don't need to have that extra little panel there. Now, there is no support up here on the Firewall. So I have these old scraps from some pieces of a rocker. I'm going to cut off one of these flanges, and we're just going to glue this little guy up in here without this tang, and we're going to cut it into smaller pieces, and we're going to arrange it around here, scuff all that up, and then this little flange here will be where this lands. That'll give us a place to glue. That'll make this nice and strong. We don't want anything to crack. We don't want this to flex and damage the paint or anything. Then after that, we should be ready to install it. We'll do one more test fit, see if we need to make any minor adjustments. So I cut this hole out just a little bit below this radius to still give this panel strength. If I cut it over here, it may lose a little bit of the strength, but I left plenty of meat on here that if he needs to trim it a little more, he can, but it's still following kind of a natural curve through here. It's all very strong, and hopefully he should be able to fit the wiper motor in. Now, I did trim those pieces of that rocker up. I sanded them down, and I mocked them up with some clamps, put some self-tappers in them to hold them in place, and then I took the Firewall, laid it up here, made sure it laid flat down here, and pushed on the top. And if we do just that with one hand, I can hold it up with my knee or something, you can see that it's nice. It'll be nice and solid back up in here, and you can see a little bit of it peeking through here and there, which is what we want. So this is a nice solid foundation to support this, and then we can come through when we're done and just put a little glue on the edge of this, and that'll seal all that up. So I think we're in pretty good shape. I need to pull these tabs off, make sure the underside of this is all scuffed up real well. We'll glue those tabs in place, give those a head start, and it's okay to use screws in an area like this because this is an under panel. The physical body panel goes over top of this. We'll pull all these screws out, but you'll never know that I use screws here. Using them for like underneath panels, bonding strips, that kind of stuff, nothing wrong with that. So I have the Firewall marked out of all the large holes that we don't want to put glue in this area. We want to avoid those because this is where the heater goes. I have all that marked out, and the same thing on that side, and we're not going to put any glue in the center. Now we need to mix up our glue, and I've used this machine over here for a couple years now. It was just some Chinese gun that has a double piston set up. I modified it to work with the size tube I use, but for a long time I have used this 3M 08115 tube, and it works really well, but they're a little bit pricey, especially whenever the tube's only this big. You do waste a little bit in the mixing chamber, but there is another option. Instead of buying those tubes, you can mix stuff yourself and buy it in a can. So Dynamic Corvettes actually sent this to me for my birthday. They sent me a whole little starter kit. So we have your part A, your part B to your adhesive. You have to mix these up. They also sent me a little scale so we can get an accurate weight. This stuff says to by volume to mix it up 2 to 1, 2 parts of this, 1 part to this. And if you're doing it by weight, you want to do 2.2 to 1 part. So they also sent me all these little different cups depending on what size of a glue job you're doing. They sent me all these little tongue depressors, some stir sticks, and they also sent me Ziploc bags. Now I've never used the Ziploc bag technique, so basically what we're going to do is figure out how much of this we want, and we're probably going to use, I don't know, let's say this cup for example. We're going to weigh that out. First zero your scale before you put this on. Weigh it out. Then we're going to figure out what 1 part is equivalent to for that. And we'll probably use, I don't know, that cup. We'll fill it up. And then we will mix the 2 parts together, stir it up really well. And then what you can do is pour that into a Ziploc bag, cut the corner off, and pump it out like it's a cake frosting kind of thing. And it'll give you a similar result to this. Now that's perfect for quarter panels. That's even fine for something like this. I've never done it like that. I'm more familiar with mixing it up on a piece of cardboard, using a spreader, and just going to town. So we'll see if I feel adventurous enough to try it with the Ziploc bag. I don't know how much time I have to work with this. I'll have to read and see. That's an important thing to figure out. So I'm gonna go ahead, get this measured up, figure out how much I need, and we're just gonna start lathering this thing up and get it glued on. So I have the firewall glued on, and I have a random clamping apparatus here just to hold this thing in place. You want to make sure you're getting good contact the whole way around. You can kind of tap the firewall and make sure it doesn't sound like it's vibrating, because if it is, that means it's not contacting. So I'm just have light pressure the whole way around. I even have a clamp up here, keeping pressure up against my custom bonding strips. So all that looks good. Now let's do a comparison here. You guys have seen me use a big can. I bought a gallon can of bonding adhesive, and it was thick as tar. You've seen me use this stuff, this 3M 08115, and I made this custom attachment for this gun to work with it because I got tired of using the hand pump. And then we have the system here from Dynamic Corvettes, this Pro Set stuff. So let's compare them. The stuff in a gallon can I've used before was so thick that I've snapped off stir sticks in it before I had to use a fairly thick piece of wood to even stir the can. And that stuff had a horrible smell. It kicked pretty quick. I never had it kick on me where I didn't get it down on the panel, but it worked pretty well, and it looks like it's the factory color. I used that on the Misfit. This stuff I've used on pretty much every car since. This stuff is about 50 or 60 bucks a tube, and you do waste a little bit in the mixing chamber, but it works pretty well. Doesn't have a smell. This one's, what, 6.75 fluid ounces. So, you know, it gets the job done. And it's nice because it's almost idiot-proof, because it tells you right here. It gives you 90 minutes of working time, 4 hours of clamp time, and then 24 hours to cure. And you know that because it mixes it for you. As long as you don't have a blowout, I always cut the end of the tip off, so that way it doesn't blow out and I don't have too much pressure in there. That works pretty well, but it's expensive. This stuff here that I got from Dynamic that they actually sent me for my birthday, which was quite a while ago, took me a while to make this video. They sent me all these cups, all this equipment. This is significantly cheaper than buying that gun and one of those tubes. Now, I haven't figured out exactly how this compares, you know, volume here to here. This is clearly more, but I don't know how much more. But all these cups, the scale and everything is cheaper. This stuff has a nice consistency. It's almost like of course, all my stir sticks are really glopped up here, but it's almost the consistency of like a grease, maybe just a little bit thicker. The black stuff doesn't have much of a smell at all. It's easy to work with. This stuff is more like a grease, and this is the one that has a little bit of a smell to it, but it's not super overpowering for other grease that other glue that I've used. I just left the door open, keep some ventilation in here, but it worked well. It mixes up nice, pours into the cups. Like I said, I used these 2 cups each to measure. I measured 300 grams in this one, so then I took that divided by 2.2 and got 136. Then I put 136 in this one. Just remember to zero out the scale with your cups between each one to be accurate. Now there will be some leftover residue in both of the cups which is fine. I mean, it's within the tolerance. I tried to get it exact just for the sake of the video, but you know, try to get it as close as possible. And I really like the fact that both the glue itself and the catalyst are both in like a gel form, solid form. The one I've used in a gallon can used liquid hardener, and that was a little challenging to measure that out. Where this is real nice and easy. I stretch a Ziploc bag over top of this, mixed them both up in this cup, poured it in, and we went to town. I cut probably too big of a slit in the bottom of it, and I didn't twist the top of the bag before I started, so I just kind of made a mess. But that was a rookie mistake. I watched the videos, but it's been a while since I've watched them on how to do this, but it worked well. So this big cup is good for pouring into, and if you have a big job like gluing on a quarter panel or a front end, I would recommend having a couple buddies to help you, having somebody mix this up and disperse it into separate bags, and you guys all just start spreading it down the panel, start in different areas, just get it covered, and then put the panel on so that way it doesn't kick. I have to go on their website and see how much working time you have for this stuff. I'm not really sure, but I really like it. I would definitely buy it again, and they do sell it in a tube, which I might do. It's a bigger tube than this one. I'm pretty sure it's twice the size, so I would need a different attachment for my gun, but I kind of like the tube. You can just go, keep moving real quick, just keep changing the cartridge out. You don't have to keep mixing. If you run out with this, you've got to hurry up and mix some more, which isn't a big deal. And with this one, you just switch your cartridge out. Just cut the tip off, and you're good to go. But I really like this stuff. I would definitely use it again. It takes a little bit of getting used to if you haven't done it like this. But either way, I definitely don't recommend the stuff that's like tar. But I recommend these two. But that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. That's going to wrap it up for the firewall portion of the car. Next week, we're jumping to the back of the car, and we need to start fitting up the quarter panels and installing those. Now, you've seen me install a few sets of those, but this time we're going to do an A to Z install. We're going to go a little slower pace, a little more in depth. Some people may not find it as interesting, but if you're a rookie getting started with this should hopefully help you install most panels on your C1 to C3 Corvette. So I have a lot of work to do, and I'll catch you guys later.